We've all heard or read about ghost ship tales shrouded in mystery and fear. These are all based on folk tales and carried on from generation to generation with very little evidence to back them up. Most of these tales were even turned into movies, and the latest example of that is the haunting of the Mary Celeste. Truth be told, none of these movies come close to the stories that inspired them. Though people think about ghost ships as abandoned wrecks that appear out of thin air in the middle of the night, the more modern examples of such ghost ships have a completely different take on the stories. Before we get familiar with the tale of a modern ghost ship, make sure you ring the bell icon for more notifications and don't forget to subscribe. The story of SS Bachmo. In 1914, a ship named Unmanned set sail from Gothenburg, Sweden. At the time, its main function was to carry goods from Hamburg to Sweden and back. It was a massive 1,322-ton cargo ship that will go down in history as one of the most infamous ghost ships. 7 years and many trips later, Unmanned was left at a German port as part of the reparations for shipping losses that were the result of World War I. It was then that the Unmanned was transferred to Great Britain's Hudson Bay Company. Later that year, the ship was renamed SS Bachmo and shipped over to Scotland, where it will spend the next decade. For 3 years during the summer months, Bachmo was used to ship tea, sugar, tobacco and weapons between Scotland and Canada. A fateful trip. From 1924 to 1931, SS Bachmo was used to ship fur in pelts all across the globe. On one of its trips, the ship got stuck in the ice close to Alaska. Instead of staying on the ship waiting for the ice to melt, the crew hiked to Burrow to get some supplies. A few days later, when the ice started to melt, the crew tried to sail home but got stuck in even more ice. But the crew wasn't able to walk back to the coast, so they had to be rescued via air. A few men from the crew stayed in a nearby town to watch over Bachmo during the winter season, the night of the blizzard. On November 24, 1931, the temperature spiked from a chilling -60 degrees Fahrenheit, -51 degrees Celsius, up to 0 degrees. It was at that moment that an incredible blizzard started. As soon as the storm had passed, the few men who had stayed to watch the SS Bachmo went outside and saw that the ship was gone. The crew's initial assumption was that the ship had sunk, but an Inuit seal hunter from a nearby village explained that the ship had broke away from the ice and floated away. A few days later, some of the other hunters saw the ship floating 45 miles or 72.4 kilometers away at sea. The ship's captain, Sidney Cornwell, was able to locate the ship and board, only to deem it unworthy of sailing. He unpacked all the crew's goods and valuables and left the ship to roam the vast oceans. The moment the ship came to life. A few months after the ship was deemed unworthy of sailing by Captain Cornwell, SS Bachmo was reported seen sailing 250 miles from the place it was originally abandoned. During the same year, many sailors reported seeing Bachmo all over the globe. In 1932, the Hudson Bay Company received word that the ship was still afloat, but weren't able to organize a rescue party that was willing to fetch it. However, over the next year or so, the stories about the ship reached the papers and spiked interest for the rescue. Several crews from all over the world tried to board the ship, but none of the attempts were successful. The most successful attempt occurred in 1935 when Captain Hugh Paulson almost boarded the ship, but SS Bachmo was covered in ice and he failed. Over the next few decades, SS Bachmo continued to roam the oceans. In 1968, the ship was seen for the last time floating across the Chukchi Sea in Alaska. In 2007, almost 4 decades later, the Alaskan government launched a search party for the SS Bachmo, but it turned out to be another futile attempt. They couldn't even find the ship, let alone bring it to the nearest port. In 2017, a crowdfunded campaign was started in order to recover the SS Bachmo, floating or sunk. The funds never reached its goal and the cause was abandoned. Over the past 50 and something years, sightings of the ship were reported by many sailors from across the globe. Sailors still share their stories on Bachmo, describing it as it roams across the ocean with lights on and a captain behind the helm. What other stories of ghost ships have you heard before? Is there one that you would like to see turned into a movie? Share your thoughts below and make sure to subscribe for more cool stories.